Kale wiped his hands on the oily rag and stepped back from the half-dismantled armor. The Queen's ceremonial suit of Arvoth, a shining masterpiece of ancient engineering and modern energy shielding, lay across the workbench like a puzzle from another galaxy. The room smelled of scorched metal and ozone, and faint sparks danced from the edges of the suit as it hummed in protest. Kale had worked on advanced starship engines before, but nothing had prepared him for this. "Are you sure you should be doing this?" asked Jaren, a palace technician who had reluctantly followed him here. His antennae twitched nervously and his 4 hands fumbled with tools. "This isn't just a suit. It's the Queen's armor. One mistake and..." Kale shook his head. "If I don't do it, no one will. The palace guards can barely touch it without short-circuiting the energy matrix. And you know what happens if the Queen walks out with faulty armor." Jaren frowned. "Everyone will die of embarrassment. Or worse." Kale laughed softly. "Exactly. That's why humans are good at this. We improvise. We fix things other species give up on." It was true. Humans were known across the colonies for their strange combination of curiosity, courage, and stubbornness. That combination had gotten Kale assigned to the Arvothian palace in the first place, despite complaints from alien engineers that humans lacked subtlety, finesse, and patience. He picked up a delicate power rod, one of the many conduits that carried energy through the armor. Its crystal core glowed faintly, and Kale had to remember the manual instructions, almost by heart. Most species would have considered the rod untouchable, but Kale had studied the ancient schematics for weeks. He understood the armor's heartbeat, the way energy flowed through it, and the way each joint and plating worked in harmony. Hours passed. Sparks flew. Metal hissed, alarms chirped. Jaren kept glancing nervously at the door, imagining the Queen arriving at any moment. Kale worked calmly, humming a tune he had learned from an old Earth radio. To anyone watching, it might have seemed reckless, but every movement was precise, calculated, human. Finally, Kale connected the last conduit. The armor pulsed, a deep, steady glow spreading through its plates like blood through veins. Kale held his breath. "Okay, moment of truth." Jaren stepped back. "If it explodes, I am never speaking to a human again." He touched the control panel and activated the suit. The armor hummed, shimmered, and then stabilized. A perfect energy field ran through it, brighter than ever before. The ancient Arvothian glyphs embedded in the plates glowed with a radiant blue light, something no engineer had achieved in decades. Jaren's jaw dropped. You did it?" Kyle nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "I told you." Humans improvise. Before either of them could celebrate, the alarms in the palace roared. Red lights flashed. Footsteps echoed down the hall. A voice boomed through the chamber. "The Queen is ready for her ceremony." "Where is the armor?" Jaren panicked. "We have to put it on her." Now. Dale froze. He had expected praise, maybe cautious admiration, but not this. The palace doors burst open, and the Queen entered, radiant in her royal robes, eyes glinting with curiosity and amusement. She stopped short when she saw Kale standing beside her, armor tools in hand, and Jaren behind him, wide-eyed. "You," the Queen said, pointing at Kale. "Did you repair this?" "Yes, Your Majesty. It's fully functional." The Queen approached the suit. She ran her hand over the polished plates, the hum of energy now steady beneath her fingers. Then she stepped into the armor herself. The moment she activated it, the suit responded as if it recognized her. Energy arcs danced along the seams, shimmering light reflecting across the chamber. The Queen moved a finger, and the armor amplified it into a graceful, controlled movement. She turned her head, and her hair floated slightly in the magnetic field. "Remarkable," she said softly. Then, without warning, she smiled and called out, "Bring him forward!" Kyle's heart skipped a beat. He stepped closer, confused. Guards and nobles began murmuring to each other, pointing and whispering. Then the phrase echoed through the hall. "Groom! Groom! Groom!" Cale blinked. What do you mean?" Jaren whispered, terrified. I think they mean you're married to the armor." Kyle stared. The queen laughed. "No, human. A tradition says the one who repairs my armor is my honor-bound protector. Groom, guardian, defender. The one who ensures my safety before, during, and after battle." Cale's mind raced. He had repaired the armor. That had been it. But now the entire court, including alien dignitaries with multi-jointed limbs and bioluminescent skin, were looking at him as if he were the most important figure in the galaxy. I'm just an engineer," Cale stammered. "And that is precisely why you are perfect," the queen said, her voice ringing like crystal. "You do not follow the rules of court. You do not fear improvisation. You see what must be done, and you do it. Come forward, Groom." Cale stepped hesitantly toward the queen. Every step he took, the whispers grew louder. Groom. The nobles bowed awkwardly, trying to maintain decorum, though it was clear none had expected a human to take this title. The queen extended her hand. Cale took it. She smiled at him. "You have not just repaired my armor. You have reminded this court why humanity is respected, feared, and sometimes envied across the stars. From this day forward, you are my protector." Cale felt dizzy. Protecting the queen? Him? A human? He had never imagined anything like this. He thought of his home colony, of his small apartment cluttered with tools and star charts. And now he was standing in the palace, surrounded by species from countless systems, with eyes fixed on him, as if he were a hero from legend. Then came the practical reality. Guards approached him with ceremonial robes, instructing him on duties, positions, and the proper way to stand during court. Alien etiquette was complicated. Every movement had to be precise, measured, and respectful. Cale nodded, doing his best to imitate the movements, though his human instincts made him slightly off rhythm. Every misstep elicited whispered gasps. "Do not worry," the queen said kindly. "They will adjust. So will you. The court may be alien, but it is also adaptable. As are you." Cale allowed himself a small smile. I will do my best." The next hours passed in a whirlwind. Cale learned the names of alien nobles who had centuries of history behind them. He discovered secret passages through the palace meant for emergency escape. He practiced basic defensive maneuvers, not for ceremony, but because the queen's position was dangerous. And all the while, he noticed something he had not expected. The aliens were watching him, not with fear, not with derision, but with fascination. Humans were unpredictable. Humans could adapt. Humans could take something ancient and sacred and make it better. The first test came sooner than expected. A minor energy fluctuation in the palace's core threatened to disable the ceremonial chambers. Cale, moving quickly, assessed the situation. With a mix of human intuition and careful manipulation of alien technology, he stabilized the energy field. A crisis averted. Whispers went around the hall. The groom is capable. That night, as Cale sat in the quarters assigned to him, he thought about what had just happened. Repairing the armor was one thing. Surviving the day without being crushed under centuries of alien tradition was another. And yet, he realized something important. This was just the beginning. Tomorrow, he would have to navigate alien politics, unpredictable nobles, and threats he could not yet see. But he had also learned that humanity's greatest strength was not technology alone. It was ingenuity, courage, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. For the first time in his life, Kale felt like a part of something much larger than himself. He had fixed the Queen's armor, and in doing so, he had unknowingly fixed a place for humanity in this distant, glittering corner of the galaxy. Outside his window, the stars twinkled, silent witnesses to the chaos, honor, and opportunity that awaited him. Kale took a deep breath. The court might call him Groom in jest, tradition, or awe, but he knew one thing. Humans were not just survivors, they were shapers of fate, and Kale, the human engineer who repaired the Queen's armor, was about to prove it. The next morning the palace awoke with a strange tension. Kale, still adjusting to the sudden fame of being the Queen's groom, sat at a long breakfast table where alien nobles exchanged quiet, pointed glances. Each species had its own rules, gestures, and etiquette, and Kale had to learn them all at once. One wrong move, a bowed head too low, a hand held incorrectly, could be seen as disrespect or even a challenge. He nervously sipped a hot liquid that vaguely smelled like burnt metal. Jaren hovered nearby, whispering reminders. Do not tilt your head when she speaks. Do not touch anything on the table. Do not. Kale held up a hand. I got it, one step at a time. The Queen entered, her armor glinting even in the soft morning light. She smiled at Kale, and for a moment the nervousness vanished. Kale, she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority and warmth. Today will be a test. You are no longer just an engineer. You are my protector, my representative in this court, and a human among centuries of tradition. Do you understand? Kyle swallowed. Yes, Your Majesty. I will do my best. Good. Observe, learn, and remember. The aliens of this court respect skill, not titles. Show them skill. And so, Kale's first real lesson began. The court was a maze of whispers, hidden alliances, and rivalries older than many human civilizations. One noble, a tall serpentine diplomat named Vrith, watched him with narrow eyes, tentacles crossing each other in subtle, threatening patterns. Another, a small, fur-covered creature named Lika, tilted her head, assessing him as if she could see through his very thoughts. Kale had learned quickly that humans relied on more than raw power. They observed, adapted, and anticipated. His first challenge came in the form of a ceremonial duel, a test not meant to harm, but to intimidate. The Queen explained that all new protectors had to pass it, demonstrating skill, courage, and quick thinking. Kale was handed an energy baton, its pulse adjustable, while his opponent Vrith wielded a pair of jagged plasma blades. Kale's human instincts kicked in. While the alien moved predictably in rigid traditional patterns, Kale improvised. He dodged, feinted, and used the energy baton to redirect Vrith's strikes, exploiting the rhythm of the alien's training. Gasps echoed through the hall as Kale deflected an almost perfect strike with a clever twist of his wrist. By the end, Vrith fell back, panting and frustrated, while Cal stood, bruised but victorious. The court erupted in whispers, some impressed, others shocked. The Queen gave a small nod of approval. Humans are unpredictable, she said softly. Kale grinned, realizing that being human was his advantage, not a limitation. After the duel, Kale found himself navigating a maze of political expectations. Nobles approached him, offering alliances, gifts, and advice, while others whispered warnings or outright threats. He realized quickly that alien politics were like advanced games of chess, layered with cultural cues, deceptive gestures, and centuries of grudges. But Kale was human, and humans had a long history of turning disadvantage into strength. Later, during a council meeting, news arrived that a rogue faction had been spotted near the outer palace perimeter. Their goal, to kidnap the Queen and exploit the chaos of her court. Kale's stomach tightened. He had repaired the armor, but protecting the Queen was a different challenge entirely. The council argued over strategy, each alien species insisting their approach was superior. Kale, though nervous, spoke up. You're overlooking something, he said.
"These attackers don't follow your rules. They're fast, they improvise."
"If we only rely on traditional defenses, they'll get through." A silence followed. Then Vrith spoke, his tone sharp. "And what would a human propose? A miracle?" Kale shook his head. "No. Observation, prediction, and rapid response. Set sensors at unconventional points, use decoys, and prepare contingency routes. If they breach one area, we funnel them into controlled zones. Humans adapt chaos. So should this palace," the council muttered. Some dismissed him. Others considered, though grudgingly. The queen, however, simply nodded. "Implement it," she commanded. "I trust the groom." Over the next few hours, Kale moved like a whirlwind through the palace. He recalibrated the energy shields around the queen's chambers, repositioned surveillance drones, and even programmed the palace's defensive turrets to respond dynamically. Jaren watched in awe, muttering, "I can't believe he knows what he's doing." Night fell, and with it the rogue faction arrived. Kale, standing in a dark corridor beside a bank of sensors, watched as small, nimble alien figures approached, attempting to bypass detection. Kale's heart pounded. Every human instinct, every lesson from engineering simulations and real-world improvisation guided him. He activated traps at precise moments, herded attackers down pre-planned corridors, and used holographic decoys to confuse them. The palace was alive with movement, energy glinting across walls and floors as Kale anticipated every attack. One of the attackers managed to slip past a turret, but Kale was ready. With a swift command, energy gates closed behind them, trapping the intruder. Another attacker lunged toward the queen's chamber, only to be blocked by a sudden surge of magnetic field, a trap Kale had rigged hours earlier. By dawn, the rogue faction had been neutralized and the palace was intact. The queen emerged from her chamber, armor glowing softly. She looked at Kale with a mixture of pride and amusement. "You have done well, Groom. Humans may be unpredictable, but they are also invaluable." Kyle felt a rush of relief and pride. For the first time, he understood the weight of his new role. Being the queen's protector was more than repairing armor or following orders. It was thinking ahead, acting decisively, and using human ingenuity to outsmart even the most dangerous threats. Word of Kale's defense spread quickly through the court. Whispers of admiration replaced whispers of doubt. Some nobles grudgingly acknowledged his skill, while others, like Vrith, seemed uncertain how to respond to a human who defied tradition, yet succeeded flawlessly. Kale realized that this was only the beginning. Humans were often underestimated, but when underestimated, they had the power to turn the tide. In the quiet hours after the attack, Kale walked through the palace halls, examining the systems he had strengthened and the corridors he had secured. He felt a strange connection to this place, a sense that humans could leave a mark, even in the most alien of worlds. He thought about the engineering skills, the improvisation, and the courage that had brought him here, and he knew that these were only the first of many tests. Jaren caught up with him, shaking his head. "I don't know how you do it. You've turned the whole court upside down and survived." "Twice in one day." Cattle smiled faintly. "Humans survive by thinking, observing, and acting. We don't wait for perfection. We created as we go." As they walked, they passed the ceremonial hall where the armor rested. It shimmered faintly, a reminder of how a single human had altered centuries of tradition. Kale paused, touching the smooth plates. He thought of the queen, the court, and the expectations now placed on him. A thrill ran through him. This was dangerous, challenging, and terrifying, but it was also exhilarating. The night was quiet, yet Kale could feel the tension simmering beneath the palace surface. Rival nobles would test him, enemies would plot, and every day would bring new challenges. But he also knew something important. Humanity was unpredictable, adaptable, and clever. That was his edge, and he intended to use it. Before retiring to his quarters, Kale stood atop a balcony overlooking the city of Arvath. The stars stretched endlessly above, reminding him of the countless human colonies scattered across the galaxy, of adventures yet to be had, and of the legacy humans could carve among alien civilizations. He clenched his fists, feeling both nervous and determined. He had repaired armor, survived the first political trials, and outwitted attackers. But the court, with its centuries of tradition and intrigue, would be a challenge unlike any he had faced. Still, Kettle smiled. For the first time, he understood that being human in an alien world was not a weakness. It was his greatest strength. And as the first rays of dawn touched the palace spires, Kale, the human groom, prepared for the trials that awaited him, ready to show that humans could not just survive in the galaxy, they could shape it. The palace was quiet in the morning light, but Kale knew that calm always came before the storm. Intelligence reports had indicated that the rogue faction was regrouping, larger and more organized than before. They had learned from their failed attempt, and Kale had no illusions. They would strike again, and this time they would not hesitate to breach the palace defenses. Kale walked through the corridors, his eyes scanning every detail. Sensors blinked softly, energy barriers hummed, and drones hovered silently, waiting for his command. Jaren trailed behind, still muttering about how humans always seem to get themselves into impossible situations.
"I don't know why the Queen trusts you," Jaren whispered. "You're one human against dozens, maybe hundreds, of professional assassins and saboteurs." "That's exactly why she trusts me. Humans don't see limits the way others do."
"We improvise, we adapt, we fight smarter." The Queen summoned him to her chambers, the glow of her repaired armor soft against the morning light. She looked serene, but Kale could see the tension in her eyes. "Kale," she said, "you have proven your skill and courage, but the test is far from over. They will attack again, and this time, it will be on a scale that could destroy the palace." Kale nodded. "Then we prepare, not just for defense, but for control. We will anticipate their moves and turn their strengths into weaknesses." The Queen smiled faintly. "I trust you to do what my advisors cannot. Be human, Kale. Let that guide you." He studied the palace's outer perimeter, analyzing points of vulnerability that the alien engineers had overlooked. Every wall, corridor, and courtyard became a potential advantage. He set traps, rerouted energy flows, and programmed defensive drones to respond dynamically. He even created holographic decoys of the Queen's procession, a trick to mislead intruders into attacking empty corridors. By evening, the palace had transformed into a labyrinth of defensive surprises. Kale's human ingenuity had turned what others considered a fortress into a living puzzle, one that favored unpredictability and adaptability over rigid tradition. As night fell, Kale stationed himself at a vantage point overlooking the main gates. The stars shimmered above, silent witnesses to the chaos that would soon unfold. Then, the first signs of movement appeared. Shadows slipped across the outer walls, coordinated and deliberate. The rogue faction had arrived. Kale's heart beat faster, but he kept his expression calm. He watched as small squads approached the gates, scanning for weaknesses. The first group reached the perimeter sensors, and Kale triggered the first trap. A surge of magnetic energy flung them off balance, causing their formation to scatter. Holographic projections of the Queen's procession confused another group, forcing them to waste precious seconds. Inside the palace, Kale moved like a shadow, coordinating drones, activating energy barriers, and guiding the palace guards. His human mind worked faster than any protocol, improvising solutions on the fly. One corridor was collapsing under an energy overload. Kale rerouted the power through auxiliary circuits, creating a temporary bridge while trapping several attackers. The rogue faction was persistent. They adapted to Kale's tricks, finding new ways to penetrate the defenses. Kale anticipated them, setting secondary traps and using environmental features to his advantage. One squad tried to use the ventilation system, but Kale had predicted this. Automated turrets, hidden within the vents, neutralized the threat before they could reach the Queen. In the throne room, the queen monitored the battle through her armor's sensors. She was calm, but Kale could see her eyes darting as he relayed information through the communication system. "They are organized and dangerous," she said. "But you
are extraordinary, Kale.
Humans are unlike any species I have known." Kyle smiled faintly. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "But it's not just me. The palace, the guards, the drones. We are all part of this. Humans just like to think ahead." Hours passed, and the battle continued. Kale's exhaustion grew, but he refused to relent. Each time the rogue faction found a new approach, he countered with precision. He funneled attackers into traps, created false exits, and even used the palace's energy conduits to create temporary shockwaves that disoriented their forces. At one point, a heavily armored intruder managed to reach the queen's chamber. Kale's instincts kicked in. He activated a magnetic field that pinned the attacker to the floor, then used a combination of mechanical and energy tools to restrain him completely. The queen emerged, her armor shining with controlled brilliance. "Impressive," she said, nodding at Kale. "Humans are a force to be reckoned with." The rogue faction, realizing their strategy was failing, attempted a retreat. Kale anticipated this, activating a series of energy gates to block their escape. The palace drones and guards pursued, capturing the remaining attackers. By dawn, the palace was secure, the rogue faction neutralized and the queen unharmed. Kale slumped against a wall, breathing heavily. Jaren rushed to him. You did it, against impossible odds." Kyle shook his head. "Not impossible. Just human." Word of the battle spread quickly through the palace. Nobles who had once doubted him now whispered their admiration. Verith, the serpentine diplomat, approached Kale cautiously. "You have shown skill and courage beyond what any of us expected. Perhaps humans are not to be underestimated." "Thank you, but I didn't do it alone. Observation, planning, and action. That's what humans bring to the galaxy. And sometimes, that's enough to turn the tide." The queen summoned Kale to the ceremonial hall, where the repaired armor glimmered in the morning light. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Kale, you have proven that humans are not just capable of survival, but of leadership, strategy, and bravery. Today, you have ensured the safety of this palace, the honor of this court, and the respect of every species present." Kyle felt a mix of pride and humility. He had gone from a simple engineer to the queen's honored protector, facing challenges that most humans could not even imagine. Yet he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with threats, opportunities, and challenges. Humans were often underestimated, but that was exactly why they thrived. They were adaptable, clever, and brave. As he walked through the palace corridors, Kale noticed the changes in the court. Nobles who had once whispered about the human groom now bowed with respect. Guards looked to him for guidance. Even Jaren seemed more confident, realizing that humans could accomplish feats that alien species considered impossible. Kale paused by the armor once more. The suit shimmered softly, a reminder of how a single act, repairing it, had changed everything. He thought about the queen, the court, and the countless challenges that lay ahead. He knew that being human was his greatest strength, and that his ingenuity, courage, and adaptability would continue to shape the future of the palace, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The day ended with a ceremony to honor the defenders of the palace. Kale stood quietly as the queen spoke, praising not just his actions, but the spirit of humanity. "In humans," she said, "we find creativity, courage, and the ability to act when others hesitate. Kale embodies these qualities. Let this be a reminder to all that humans are not merely guests in the galaxy. They are a force to be reckoned with." Kale felt a surge of pride, but also a quiet determination. This was just one battle, one test. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers and opportunities. But Kale knew that humans, with their ingenuity and courage, would continue to rise, adapt, and thrive. As the sun set over the palace, Kale looked out across the city of Arvath. Stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to the chaos, courage, and triumph that had unfolded. Kale clenched his fists, feeling the weight of responsibility and the thrill of possibility. He had faced the rogue faction, protected the Queen, and proven the value of human ingenuity, but he also knew that more challenges awaited, and that humans were ready to meet them head-on. For Kale, the human groom, this was more than duty. It was an opportunity. An opportunity to show that humanity, often underestimated, could shape the galaxy in ways no one had imagined. And as night fell, Catalina prepared for whatever the future would bring, confident that humans, with their creativity, courage, and adaptability, would continue to shine among the stars. The morning after the battle, the palace of Arvath buzzed with activity. Word had spread of Kale's triumph against the rogue faction, and the court's perception of humanity had shifted overnight. Nobles who had once whispered doubts now nodded in respect as he passed. Guards sought his advice, and even Vrith, the serpentine diplomat who had doubted him, approached cautiously. Kale moved through the halls with a mixture of pride and humility. Being the Queen's protector had grown into something more than a title. It was responsibility, strategy, and leadership, all in one. But he also realized that this was no longer about him alone. Humans, long underestimated across the galaxy, now had an example, a symbol of ingenuity and courage. And Kale intended to make the most of it. The Queen summoned him to the ceremonial hall. The repaired armor shimmered under the sunlight, streaming through the grand windows, each plate gleaming like a jewel. Nobles and dignitaries from countless star systems had gathered, their eyes fixed on the human who had altered the course of Arvathian history. "Kale," the Queen began, her voice calm yet commanding, "your actions have shown more than skill and bravery. They have shown the very essence of humanity, adaptability, courage, and ingenuity. From this day forward, you are not only my protector, you are an ambassador of your people."
Kale bowed, careful to follow proper etiquette.
"Thank you, Your Majesty. I will do my best." The Queen smiled. "You have already exceeded expectations. Today we celebrate not just your achievements, but the potential of all humans. Let the court witness that those who are underestimated may, in fact, be the strongest." The ceremony was a dazzling display of color, light, and tradition. Alien nobles presented gifts, some curious, some cautious, while others offered gestures of alliance. Kale observed everything with a careful eye, noting opportunities, patterns, and potential threats. His human instincts told him that while this moment was celebratory, the galaxy beyond the palace was full of dangers that no courtly display could contain. After the ceremony, Kale found himself walking alongside the Queen through the palace gardens. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of alien flora that shimmered with bioluminescence. "You have done well, Kale," she said softly. "But this is only the beginning. There will be more threats, more challenges, and more tests. Are you ready for them?" Kale nodded. "I am, Your Majesty. Humans. We face challenges head-on. We don't wait for perfect conditions. We adapt and react." The Queen smiled, her eyes glinting with admiration. "And that is why I trust you. Not because you follow orders, but because you think beyond them. That is the strength of humanity." The news of Kale's success reached other human colonies in the galaxy. Messages arrived, praising him, celebrating his ingenuity, and recognizing the value of humans as more than mere laborers, engineers, or soldiers. They were problem solvers, leaders, and innovators. Kale felt a sense of pride, but also a weight of responsibility. He was no longer just an engineer or a protector. He was a symbol. In the following days, Kale continued to strengthen the palace's defenses, not out of fear, but out of foresight. He trained with the guards, sharing techniques that combined human adaptability with alien technology. He conducted simulations for potential threats, always seeking to anticipate the unpredictable. And he studied the politics of the court, understanding that diplomacy was as vital as combat. One afternoon, Vrythe approached Kale with a tentative proposal. "I admit, human, that your methods, while unconventional, are effective. Perhaps there is merit in combining human ingenuity with traditional strategies. We could benefit from your perspective." Kyle considered this. Humans thrived on collaboration, learning, and innovation. "I would be happy to assist," he said. "We can learn from each other, blending tradition with adaptability." Word spread quickly, and soon other nobles and diplomats sought Kale's guidance. Humans, once underestimated, were now recognized as valuable partners in strategy, defense, and innovation. Kale realized that his role as the Queen's protector was evolving. He was shaping perceptions of humanity across the stars. However, Kale remained vigilant. The rogue faction had been defeated, but the galaxy was vast and threats could arise anywhere. One evening, while inspecting the palace's outer defenses, he noticed unusual readings, small, stealthy crafts approaching from a nearby asteroid field. His instincts flared. These attackers were different, faster, more coordinated, and better equipped than before. Kal moved swiftly. He activated energy barriers, repositioned drones, and alerted the guards. Using human improvisation, he devised a trap that leveraged the natural terrain of the asteroid field. As the crafts entered the palace perimeter, they were funneled into a narrow corridor where Kale's defenses could isolate them. The battle was intense. Energy pulses flashed, alarms blared, and the attackers tested every defense Kale had put in place. But human ingenuity, combined with careful observation and anticipation, turned the tide. One by one, the attackers were neutralized or captured, unable to adapt to the unexpected strategies Kale had deployed. When the battle ended, the Queen emerged from her chambers, her armor shining brilliantly. She approached Kale, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Once again, human, you have proven that adaptability, courage, and foresight are as powerful as any weapon. Humanity has earned respect here, not through tradition, but through action." Kale felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had faced danger, protected the Queen, and shown the court and the galaxy that humans were capable of far more than anyone had imagined. He understood that humans' greatest strength lay not in their technology alone, but in their ability to think, adapt, and act in the face of uncertainty. In the weeks that followed, Kale worked tirelessly to integrate human methods into palace strategy. He trained the guards, refined defense systems, and advised the Queen on matters of security and diplomacy. The court, once skeptical, now recognized the value of human ingenuity. Even Vrythe, who had doubted him, spoke publicly about the effectiveness of Kale's strategies. Through it all, Kale remained humble. He knew that his actions were only a small part of a larger picture. The Queen's trust, the cooperation of the palace guards, and the support of allies were all essential. Yet he also knew that humans had proven themselves not by titles or tradition, but by courage, skill, and ingenuity. One evening, Kale stood on a balcony overlooking the city of Arvath. The stars stretched endlessly above, silent witnesses to the struggles and triumphs that had unfolded. He reflected on the journey from a simple engineer to the Queen's protector and ambassador. The challenges had been immense, but so had the rewards. Jedin joined him, shaking his head in disbelief. "You've changed everything. Humans are different now, respected, feared, and admired." Kale smiled faintly. "We were always capable. People just never realized it. Sometimes all it takes is a chance, a little courage, and the willingness to act." The city below twinkled with lights, a reminder of the countless human colonies scattered across the galaxy. Kale thought of his homeworld, of friends and family, and of the potential that humanity held. He knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges, discoveries, and opportunities for humans to prove themselves once again. As the Queen's ceremonial armor shimmered in the distance, Kale felt a sense of purpose. Being the groom was no longer about a title or ceremony. It was about demonstrating the human spirit, adaptable, courageous, and relentless. The rogue faction might rise again. Threats might emerge from unknown corners of the galaxy, but Kale was ready, and so was humanity. The following morning, the court gathered once more for a ceremony to honor the defenders of the palace. Kale stood beside the Queen, surrounded by nobles and dignitaries from countless worlds. The Queen spoke, her voice carrying across the hall. Today we celebrate bravery, ingenuity, and loyalty, but we also celebrate humanity, which has shown that even those underestimated can rise to greatness. Kale, your actions have secured not just my safety, but the respect of the galaxy.
Applause echoed through the hall.
Kale felt a mixture of pride, humility, and determination. The journey from a simple engineer to the Queen's protector had been unexpected, challenging, and exhilarating. He had repaired armor, thwarted attacks, and shown that humans could excel where others failed. Later, as Kale walked through the palace gardens, he reflected on the path ahead. The galaxy was vast, filled with opportunities and dangers alike. Humans had proven their worth, but the work was far from over. Kale knew that his role was not just to protect the Queen, but to demonstrate humanity's potential, to inspire trust, and to challenge assumptions about what humans could achieve. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the gardens, Kale looked to the stars. Each one represented a world, a challenge, and a possibility. He clenched his fists, feeling the thrill of adventure and the weight of responsibility. He had shown that humans were not merely survivors. They were innovators, strategists, and leaders. And as night fell, the palace of Arvav stood strong, protected by human ingenuity, courage, and determination. Kale, the human groom, had not only repaired armor, he had repaired the perception of humanity in a galaxy that had long underestimated it. He knew that the future would bring new challenges, new threats, and new opportunities. But Kale was ready, and humanity, once underestimated, was prepared to rise, adapt, and shape the galaxy in ways that no one had imagined. For Kale, the journey had begun with a single act, repairing the Queen's armor, but it had become a story of courage, ingenuity, and the unyielding spirit of humanity, and the galaxy would remember it.